All right, good evening and Happy New Year. Welcome to our first episode of 2024 of Transcending Veils. I'm your host, P.E. Riley, and these two lovely ladies sitting next to me are my co-hosts, Audra Moon, and the lovely and talented Alexis Reeves. How's it going, guys? Everybody hanging in there and doing good?
So far.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed, right? It's kind of early.
Yeah.
It's kind of early yet, so you never know what can happen. We got to make it through this first.
Yes.
Definitely. Tonight we are going to revisit a subject that we had talked about last season, and never really came to any type of conclusions or anything like that. And we're still tossing this around, and we're still having kind of an argument over it as to demonic possession or mental illness. Which is it? So we are going to, like I said, get back into this discussion. I've got some neat little examples I want to play for you guys. I've got to play it the old-fashioned way because, as usual, Morty has struck already before we even got going, and my equipment's not working properly again. So, but we will get it across. If it doesn't come across properly, then I can, upload it and do all that in edits and stuff like that, all that boring crap. But anyway, we've got a couple of examples, a couple of cases we're going to talk about, and we're going to dive in real deep on this stuff. And I've got a little surprise research that I did also. So where do we want to start this off at, guys? What subject do we want to start with? Which case? Flip a coin? Yeah, we want to do this.
I'll give the floor to Alexis because I always jump in with my I have one.
All right, Lex, it is all yours, kiddo. What are we going to be talking about?
All right, so I was going to talk about Arnie Johnson and that case, but I was going to start off with explaining why I have such a huge interest in this, which started when I was 11, and I'm going to be 29, right? So it came from a personal experience with a close family member, actually, and at first it seemed like it was just pure mental illness, right? But then strange things started happening. I'm not going to make this real long, but when they would go into these fits, their pupils would turn, like they'd explode. And so their eyes, which are normally blue, would look completely black. And they'd start growling and making animal-like noises. And when they go into these fits, they couldn't remember anything. And their voice would change, and they'd start repeating the same thing over and over, which was, I hate your guts, 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 guts. And they'd talk about burning us alive and everything in the house, but they wouldn't remember it later on. It was bad. And, I grew up with that. But again, that didn't start till I was 11 after they had a near-death experience and almost drowned. So who knows?
That's got to be absolutely terrifying.
It was horrifying, not to mention the way I grew up. I mean, it was my father. He wanted the house to be off the grid. So like at night when this would happen, because we ran the electricity off of a generator, it'd be completely dark except for one candle. So this is happening after we've gone to bed. He has these fits, and it would usually hit around 3 a.m. And my mom stopped sleeping in the same room as him because she said she could feel the bed pressing down. And when he'd start making these growling noises and stuff. And it would go on for hours, his fits, and then he'd come out of it. But they tried saying it was schizophrenia. But I'm like, I don't know. There's things flying off the walls in the house, and he's chanting and making weird animal noises. So it might be mental illness mixed with that, because when you're mentally ill, you can be more susceptible to that kind of energy coming through, So that was just a personal little excerpt of why I've been so interested in this. So
yeah.
Is this something that's continuing on today?
Yes.
So it hasn't stopped. It's ongoing.
No. Correct. And every time he has lucid moments, and he will ask for help and ask, hey, can we get someone back here to do an exercise, something? And you go to do that, and he freaks out, his voice changes again, and suddenly he wants no one back there, and he gets violent. And but getting him off the property, once he's off the property, he's easier to handle. And I know that's kind of a bad word to use, handle, but it's true, because you have to. And I've spoken to multiple psychics, mediums, shamans, all of them. No one wants to touch this because they said it's very old, and they had asked if he had ever taken anything from somewhere, and that's when I found out he went to Chichen Itza, and he took a sacrificial piece of stone from one of the temples, and that was years ago. So who knows?
Perfect.
Yep, right there. And there's so much that goes into it. I could just talk about that for my story without the Arnie Johnson.
Right.
So,
but
that's why.
Yeah, you wanted to lead into this other story using that, and
yeah,
that's understandable. I'm not going to dig too much into your personal. God damn, that's scary.
Right.
We need to just do a show about that. But
okay.
So
I have recordings and stuff.
So yeah, let's move on into what you wanted to get into the sledgehammer murder possession case, as it were. It's crazy because this is actually spins off of what they thought was a actual possession, but not by these people. It actually started with the guy's brother, right?
Yep. Okay, so this started May of 1980. The people were Debbie Glatzel, her little brother David Glatzel, and her boyfriend Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, and they had just moved into this new home. And the sister had her little brother David come to help them move. And when he was in one of the back bedrooms, this was the first time he experienced the demonic entity. And then I remember this clearly because I had read the book years ago on this with firsthand accounts by Ed and Lorraine Warren, and it was called The Devil in Connecticut. So he's explaining how he's back there sweeping, and there was this waterbed, and he felt this energy come into the room. And if I remember correctly, because there's a few different versions of this, but in the book, it stated that he had watched the waterbed start pressing down like someone was in it, and it freaked him out. And so afterwards, he goes back home after he helps his sister and her boyfriend Arnie get moved in. And later that night, he said he felt something come over him. And when he had gone to bed, he was terrified. It's like he said he felt something coming down the road for him. And after that, they started the possession. And they claimed that there were 42 demons inside of him. So it almost killed this little boy. And it started out gradually, like it always does, because there's different stages to possession. And it ended with, I'm trying to remember this part, because again, different versions here. But it ended with the exorcism of him, and Arnie told the demons to come into him to save this boy, and they did. So what happens from there? Within, I do believe it was 24 hours after he had the demons, attack him instead, he ended up killing their landlord, and that was February 16th, 1981, I do believe. And he stabbed him 20 times while under possession. So what makes this case really interesting, though, is that this was the first case in the United States that used the defense as, being possessed by a demon. And they had a lot of proof. However, the judge did not want to take it seriously because he said, even though there's proof, we cannot prove this scientifically.
Now,
so they threw that defense out.
Now, in introducing this, I got this mixed up with another one. I said it was the sledgehammer case.
Oh, okay.
It's not. It's the devil made me do it case is what they called it. Now, the funny thing is, I was able to find recordings on David Glatzel, who was his brother, his younger brother, who was originally possessed. I found a recording of him, but I could not find, believe it or not, anything on Arnie as far as any type of interviews or recordings or anything like that. So my question, it's just such an odd case, you know, that you have this kid that gets possessed. His brother opens himself up to the demon to come over and possess him, which he does. And then he does all this stuff, yet all he can do, all that I find that he did was claim that the devil made him do it, that the devil took him over and made him do it without really any of the meat and potatoes of the possession, you know. What was
right?
You know, what was involved in the devil coming into him and possessing him and leaving his brother David, you know, because I missed all of that stuff. I don't know where I lost that. I couldn't find anything on it.
Really? Okay, so that's interesting. Now, they did just release a documentary interviewing Arnie Johnson, and it's on Netflix. It was, I had mentioned it earlier. It was Devil on Trial.
Right.
And there they actually have interviews with him, and he explains the feeling that had come over him. And before he claimed that he had never had any problems prior to this, no, mental health issues, nothing like that. So, that's why at first they're like, well, is this mental health? What is this? So, but he only actually ended up serving 5 years out of the 10 to 20-year sentence he had for good behavior. And, it seemed like his issues went away after that. So it is kind of like, was it mental illness that caused this? Because he hadn't had problems before that.
Yeah.
Or did he really become possessed? Because where did the possession go then? Because normally it has to be exorcised. So yeah, that's a very good point. That's what had me confused as well.
And it's so weird because this particular case raises so many questions. Because there are the skeptics, the doubters, who have thrown the information out there that when David was demonically possessed prior to Arnie accepting the demon, he would go and he would have these fits, which I'm going to play an excerpt here in a second of him having one of these demonic fits. And as you said, the Warrens looked into this case. I think they stepped up and said, this is a case of demonic possession. You need to contact the church. But the church didn't want to do anything. But the church has got to be the one really to make that call. And there's
it has to go through the Vatican.
Yeah, there's certain criteria that have to be met in order for them to even say, yeah, this is demonic possession. And in what I saw from the kid, from David, there's stuff missing that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because it's like in one case, and I can't remember who it was. It may have been Arnie. Said that when their dad would come home and he would start this stuff, he would tell him, knock it off with that devil shit, and the kid straighten up, But you have to ask, where did he get this influence? Why? What would cause him to act out like that? And I mean, that's a hell of an act, if you're going to act like that, it's a hell of an act. But, there was stuff there that to me it wasn't clicking. There was too many conclusions jumped to very, very quickly in this, So that's the questions I have. Now, I'm not discounting any of this. I absolutely buy into there can be demonic possessions. I am an atheist, but that doesn't mean I don't have an open mind to that kind of thing. I really do.
Right.
So yeah, there was just simply that. There seemed to be so many things jumped over to get to the conclusion of demonic possession.
Well, plus, like when you listen to the recordings, when you listen to other recordings of exorcisms and stuff, like their voice completely changes, and David's voice didn't really change. So for me, like personally, I think this was something maybe not so demonic, at least with David. I mean, the book I read though, it made it, they amped it up, to get people to buy the book and everything.
Well, and I mean, you've got a kid that did he watch a demonic possession movie? Did he read a book?
Right.
There's all this stuff that's unanswered. How did he? Supposedly, he never had any kind of contact with any of that stuff. This just came on out of nowhere. But yeah. let me see if I can play this real quick. Okay. Hopefully, it'll come across without too much of a mess here. But this is David Glatzel, and this is one of his demonic possession fits that he went through. It's not very long.
Mom is here. Come on, wake up. Come on, get up. Come on, let's go. Get out of this. Get out of my son. Get out of my son. Come on, son. Son, get up. Get away from my son. No. I'm your mother. David. Wake up. Get up. Get up, David. Use the Holy One and loves you. Mommy loves the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay. He sounded like a kid speaking in a scary voice to me. That's all it was.
Yeah.
I didn't hear any demonic voice coming through. And also one of the things I noticed, one of the lines he comes off with is, I'm going to fuck Jesus in hell or something like that. Well, according to the criteria, I've got the black and white document of how to tell if it's a possession or not. Yeah. Let's see, where is it? Naturally, now I'm not going to be able to find it, but they have a version. It's number one. That's why I couldn't find it. They have a aversion to religion. So demons want nothing to do with Christ. They don't want to mention his name. They don't want to hear about him. They don't want anything to do with him whatsoever. While people with a neurological brain disorder usually are often devoutly religious. So, that's number one. He's not, and it's funny because the movie Nefarious that you pointed me to, I love that movie, by the way.
Yeah, it was great.
I talked to somebody and they said, well, I didn't like it because it wasn't a horror movie. Well, no, it's not a horror movie, but they cover every point of demonic possession. They go into it in great detail, and it's amazing. The acting in it, just incredible.
Isn't it?
But the thing was with him, if you noticed, he would never say Jesus or Jesus Christ. He would always say the carpenter. What's the carpenter going to think about this? What's the carpenter going to? He would not say his name. Yet here, this kid is, and he says it a lot, in the context of his having these fits. So that was like a big red flag to me when I went through and started listening to those recordings. Again, I am no expert on this. I am not discounting this. I am not saying this wasn't demonic possession and it wasn't true. I'm just going by what I know, what I've been able to find, and what I've heard. in continuing on, I didn't mean to interrupt you for so long, but in continuing on with your story with Arnie and Debbie, they ended up killing their landlord. Is that correct?
Well, it was Arnie who killed the landlord. And yeah, he stabbed him 20 times. They were drinking too on top of that. So that was brought into question. But I know when I was watching the documentary the other night, the one that's on Netflix that interviews all of these people, some of the brothers did not believe that this was a case of demonic possession at all. They thought it was their brother, David, the one who was originally possessed, just trying to get attention, and they thought, maybe he did have some mental health problems. And then Arnie got really, really angry when drinking with the landlord. There's a few different, again, accounts. Like some say they were playing poker, I think, or something like that, and maybe he lost and he just lost his temper because he was drinking, and then he said it was because he was possessed. So really, it is hard to tell with this one, but there's definitely something lacking with all of it, and it does seem to be more of a mental health thing.
Now, was this? You said the Warrens, and we had talked about this earlier. The Warrens stepped in.
Yes.
If everybody that listens to Paranormal Anything knows who the Warrens are, they they're paranormal husband and wife team, been around forever. I think he's dead and she's still alive, but she's like 197 years old or something like that. But
actually, the Conjuring movies, they came out with their last Conjuring movie was The Devil Made Me Do It.
Yep.
And that was based off all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yep.
So if you've watched the Conjuring movies, you know who they are.
They dramatize it. So.
Well, of course, that's Hollywood. They're going to do that. The thing is, I think the only people that verified this were the Warrens, because, like you said, there weren't any priests that were going to touch it. The holy people didn't touch it. Nobody came forward and said this was a true case of demonic possession. Yet their lawyers thought that was a strong enough case to use that as the reason why they did this. And there's a lot of variables in there. And I think, once again, people have to be aware and not jump so quickly into this demonic possession thing, because there's a lot of problems that people have, neurological disorders, etc.
Yep.
I'm going to read the rest of this list. I'm going to read the rest of this checklist here before we're done, so everybody will have a good idea. So if your kids start acting like a little freaking devil, you can go down this list and you can make sure, okay, he's not possessed. He's just a pain in my ass. So, you'll be able to hit that checklist right there. But, okay, what was the outcome of all of this, Alexis? Well, you said he got 5 years?
Yeah, he ended up only getting 5 years out of the 10 to 20 sentence, and he went on to live a normal life. And then they stopped covering it because there wasn't anything else going on with it.
Right.
So it just kind of ended really abruptly. And I remember that in the book too. I was like, whoa, hang on now. But like during the book, they got so into detail, with the flies and David not being able to swallow, and he'd choke, and it would start choking him, and it would lift him off the ground and everything. And again, this was by Ed and Lorraine Warren. So if people took it seriously, because they're pretty, revered in the paranormal community. So, but yeah, it just kind of dropped off. Now they're, resurrecting it now with these movies and documentaries. So.
Right. So the name of that documentary the name of that documentary on Netflix again was, what is it?
The Devil on Trial.
Devil on Trial. Okay. If you guys want to get into this a little deeper and come to your own conclusions, the documentary's on Netflix, Devil on Trial. Go check it out. You can also Google the particular case of demonic possession. You Google it, 10,000 cases are going to pop up out there. So it's not hard to
Mhm.
find. And go check it out for yourself and come to your conclusions and let us know what you think. Get a hold of us. You know how to do it. Let us know what you think of all this. Because it's really, I mean, it's to this day still very, very controversial. And everybody has their own opinion of it. Some people are very opinionated about it. And right now, especially because there's just so much shit going on in the world that, they want to choose a heaven or a hell real quick. They're real quick to
Yep.
jump on that bandwagon. But keep an open mind and come to your own conclusions. But let us know what you think about that particular case, the devil made me do it case. All right, that was awesome. You want to go for more, Audra? What you got?
Ooh. Well, I got a demon right here who's trying to eat me, but yeah. Hi. This is our new co-host. So it was funny because you were touching on the list, right? And I don't know if either one of you have watched the Pope's Exorcism yet, or Exorcist, the Pope's
Yes.
Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, have you seen it?
Yes,
All
I
right.
have.
So that is actually, I mean, it's dramatized, but it is based on a real exorcist for the Vatican who, he would weed out who was actually possessed and who wasn't. And he wrote massive books about it. He got in a lot of trouble for doing so. There was a situation where in the movie, because I have not read the books, but in the movie, one of the first cases of possession comes across, he convinces the demon to go into the pig. And then magically, it goes into the pig and he kills the pig. And now the guy is cured. And he said the power of suggestion. The guy wasn't actually possessed, but he had to believe he was being cured, mental illness, which I thought was very interesting. Now, what I want to touch on is Annalise Mitchell, or Michelle, however you want to pronounce it. If anyone out there has seen The Exorcism of Emily Rose, you know who Annalise is. Annalise was she was in a West Germany, and when she was about 16 years old, she was also a devout Catholic girl. And I have a bunch of notes that I have to look at, but she actually died after having, I believe, 62 exorcisms done in a course of a couple of months. Now, the priest and her parents actually ended up going to getting charged with her murder. And they were charged with negligent homicide. They had discovered that her death was because of malnourishment, dehydration, and pneumonia. Now, she had, I think, 6 demons in her. She had 6 demons in her, and they, she claimed that they wouldn't let her eat. She ended up with an aversion to religious figures and, symbols and all of that stuff. Now, when she first started with seizures, her parents brought her to a doctor when she was 16 years old, and they diagnosed her with epilepsy, temporal lobe epilepsy. So let's go to my notes, because there's a whole bunch of science, and I went into medications that she was on, that, what side effects those have. I went all in. So, my notes, she was born September 21st, 1952, and she died at 23 years old on July 1st, 1976. So she died of malnutrition, for which her parents and the priest were convicted of negligent homicide. She was diagnosed with epileptic psychosis, temporal lobe epilepsy, and had a history of psychiatric treatment that proved ineffective. They only started psychiatric treatment after she got diagnosed with epilepsy. And then she got diagnosed with depression. And once I get into like her medications, you'll see how a girl who never had depression now has depression. So the doctor who had ended up going to court to plead on the medical side of things said she had temporal lobe epilepsy with, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to do my best, Geschwind syndrome, and a disorder marked by hyper-religiosity. So,
Okay.
in layman's terms, she had epilepsy, and Geschwind syndrome, actually, all it really does is it causes like a change in personality, repetitive behaviors, and but nothing to the extreme now of what she did. Now, when she died, both of her knees were broken from this demon, or these demons, forcing her to keep dropping to her knees to pray, in a sense, in the praying position. So she forgive me because I'm going through my stuff. When she died, her knees were broken. That's what they call it. She would genuflect. They were genuflections, which is constantly going in a kneeling position, dropping down to a kneeling position. So her knees were broken, and she was 66 pounds when she died.
Good God.
She was unable to move without assistance and was reported to have contracted pneumonia as well. The autopsy report stated the cause of death was malnourishment and dehydration, resulting from almost a year in a state of near starvation while the rites of exorcism were performed. Now, she claimed that this demon would not allow her to eat. Okay. But she was doing crazy things. I mean, she had 6 different voices coming out of her, speaking in, I don't believe on the recordings it is her native language. I believe there's a mix in there somewhere, but I forgot to look that up, to be 100% honest. But she would do things. She would eat insects. She would bash her head against the wall and knock her teeth out. She would rip her fingernails out. She would pee on the floor and lick her own urine. None of this sounds like epileptic behaviors to me. That I have seen people with epilepsy and different types of epilepsy. And I even went in and I started reading. I got a ghost right over there. I started reading reports of different types of temporal lobe epilepsy, and the Gershwin syndrome combined with epilepsy, and looking for these sort of behaviors. And I found nothing. And I was looking at, psychiatrists and like their reports. I was looking at medical articles, nothing, couldn't find anything. So there was that, but then I decided I was going to look into her medication. So Annalise, so first off, temporal lobe seizures, okay? They begin in the temporal lobes of the brain, and these areas process emotions and are an important, he's just here for the special effects. These areas process the emotions and are important for short-term memory. Okay, short-term memory. Symptoms of a temporal lobe seizure may be related to these functions, and some people have odd feelings during the seizures, such as joy, deja vu, or fear, and that is during the seizures. She wasn't having seizures all day long from the time she was 16 to the time she was 23, So then I discovered they put her on Dilaudid, and the common side effects of Dilaudid include nausea, stomach pain, a loss of appetite, poor coordination, increased hair growth, and enlargement of the gums. Potential serious side effects include sleepiness, self-harm, liver problems, bone marrow suppression, low blood pressure, and toxic epidermal necrosis, okay? Because she was known for hurting herself, but toxic epidermal necrosis is such a terrible skin rash that people will tear their skin off just scratching, So that's interesting. And the chronic use of Dilaudid is also associated with decreased bone density and increased bone fractures. Remember, I said that her knees were broken. It induces metabolizing enzymes in the liver, which leads to increased metabolism of vitamin D, thus decreased vitamin D levels. Vitamin D, as well as low calcium and phosphate in the blood, and can cause decreased bone mineral density. Okay.
It sounded
Now,
like
another.
It sounded like the doctors were giving her a recipe for disaster. To be quite honest,
It does.
Yeah.
It does, but so I'll get to that in a minute. So the next medication that she was given was Olept, which is not legal in the United States. Okay, it is legal in Canada and it is legal in Europe. It is not legal here. I don't know why, but it's not. But it is similar to chlorpromazine, and which is an antipsychotic medication. And it's primarily used to treat psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia. Other uses include the treatment of bipolar disorder, severe behavioral problems, and common side effects include movement problems, lost my place, sleepiness, dry mouth, low blood pressure upon standing, because the other thing is she would stand up and then she would pass out. She would just faint and then begin to have a seizure. or they never actually called them seizures. They called them convulsions. You know what I mean? So there's, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but there's a difference there, you know? So an increased weight gain, serious side effects may include the potential for permanent movement disorder, tardive dyskinesia. I looked it up and I don't remember what it is. Neuroplectic malignant syndrome and severe lowering of the seizure threshold and low white blood cell levels. She also worsened physically. And wait a minute. I didn't finish that one. Look at that. Okay, so she also, when she started acting aggressive towards other people, and she worsened in November of 1973, she began treatment with Tegretol, which is an anti-seizure drug and a mood stabilizer. Now, I'm pretty sure I have that here. Hold on.
I've been on that stuff.
Give me moments.
It's just, you know, yeah, while you're looking that up, I mean, you hear that laundry list of drugs that they had this girl on. I could completely understand why the courts charged the doctors and the parents with the murder. I mean,
they didn't charge the doctors though.
They didn't charge or they charged the priest.
They charged the priest.
That's right.
And yeah, when really it should have been these doctors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, there's that buzzing. All right. Where am I? There I am. I have so many tabs open because I was reading. So that last drug, okay, the Tegretol. So the effects on that is the body's production of red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets, and can cause major effects of aplastic anemia, white blood cell and platelet, increased risk of suicide. This is one. So an increased risk of syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone secretion, which can cause convulsions, coma, death, cognitive impairment, osteoporosis, swelling of brain cells, and various neurological abnormalities. There was more. Yep. Let's see. There was more. That's not what I want. I don't want symptoms. I'm in the wrong thing. That's what I get. Oh, it's technically inappropriate water reabsorption of the kidneys. Causes decreased protein intake and can cause the presence of cerebral edema. Can also cause
more. God.
Oh, yeah.
Good God.
It also causes a risk of seizures. Now, causes pancreatitis, hepatitis, Stevens-Johnson syndrome, bone marrow suppression, and also causes ataxia, right? Hold on. Yep. So it causes ataxia, nausea, vomiting, drowsiness, headaches. Also causes central nervous system. Causes depression of the central nervous system. May increase risk of seizures in people with seizure disorders. Now remember, they diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy. Abnormal heart rhythms, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. That laundry list is just insane. If it wasn't a devil possessing her or a demon possessing her, I'm not sure which was worse, to be quite honest with you. Was it the demonic possession or all the crap that the doctors were stuffing into her to try and quote unquote cure her? That's insane. That's you're stuff somebody that full of medication, you're gonna kill them. There's not going to be a pretty outcome of it at all. Now, in your opinion, Audrey, your personal opinion, do you think that there was indeed a case of demonic possession here, or was it just combined side effects of all the
honestly
stuff with?
In my honest opinion, I don't know. And this is the first time that I can sit here and say I lean more towards the demonic possession, because she's seeing, before she got so bad, she went through the stages. If you really pay attention to everything she went through, it started with just feelings of being watched. Then it started with hearing voices as she was praying, then it was, seeing faces, seeing these demons everywhere. And I don't know anyone, and I could not find anything on anyone with any disorder that she was diagnosed with, speaking of the same things. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like they do, but like not in this case. Like none of the symptoms that she exhibited were, they didn't coincide with anything I've read as far as temporal lobe epilepsy. Even with Gershwin syndrome and, the other one. So, there's that. I have to question, you also got to think this was back in the late 60s, early 70s. Medical, especially mental health, that wasn't there. So I don't believe they could properly diagnose her with that. I feel like it was more of a shut up answer, Plus I've met people with epilepsy. I have seen epilepsy. I've seen changes in moods and all of that stuff. I have never seen someone, licking their urine off the floor or breaking their own knees by kneeling. Plus, she had an aversion. She developed an aversion to, religious symbols, anything religious. And this was a very devout Catholic woman. Do I think maybe she could have had a random seizure, and ended up with some sort of brain damage, sure. But if she was not possessed, you know, I definitely think that the medication she was on helped aid her in death. You know what I mean? Especially, but the thing that gets me is she was resistant to all the drugs. They never worked. They did not work. So, but at the same time, they are not going to work if you are not treating the right thing, even if it's not a demonic possession, you know? So this one I am really stumped on. I could go really either way. Looking at it from a logical standpoint, now her parents and the priest, they were charged with negligent homicide.
I kind of wonder, like with the whole Annalise thing, that if the medication didn't just weaken her, so the demonic possession became stronger and more came in. You know what I mean?
It could have.
Yeah, because it seems like it's both in a way.
And I am an avid person, an avid, you know, when it comes to demonic possession, I'm like, I'm into it. You know? So,
yeah.
This one just really throws me off, especially now. If you would have asked me earlier this week, I would have been like, oh yeah, she was totally possessed. Looking up the medication, now I'm like, I don't know, because all of those side effects with all of that shit together, I mean, and especially with the way medicine was for mental health back then, they didn't, not yet. They didn't care because there was such a taboo around, you know, mental health. They thought something was wrong with you. You were thrown into an asylum.
Yeah.
So, you know, there weren't very many strides back then for mental health. So I feel like they wouldn't have diagnosed her correctly anyway.
No, it's very rare that they actually diagnose people properly back then.
It's rare that they diagnose them now, you know, correctly.
Right. I know it's insane, and using that word, but you know, like it's crazy. Like we have advanced so far, and still we're still struggling with this. So there's still a lot of stigma behind it, a huge stigma behind it.
Yeah, mental health is not it's not a top priority when it should be.
It absolutely should be. Majority of you know, the world's problems is mental health. You know, think about it.
Oh yeah,
greed and mental health.
I know. It's so when it comes to Annalise, I do not know. I could not tell you one way or the other. But either way, I think the doctors had more. They were the ones who should have been put on for negligent homicide. Versus,
yes, absolutely.
The priest and the parents. The parents, their kids, you know.
Right, and they're just trying to do what they thought was best and listen to the doctors.
Yeah, you know? Because and well, the doctors weren't helping. It wasn't getting better, so then they called in a priest. You know, it's a shame. And then they even exhumed her body at one point.
Really?
And it showed that it was conclusive with, you know, proper amount of decay and all that stuff. Because before she died, she was claiming stigmata.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, which is interesting because that's like being touched by Christ, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. Stigmata is supposed to be like an honor. I mean, I'm sorry, but if that's an honor in Christianity, I'm all set.
Well, isn't that where you bleed from the palms and everything? Is that what that one is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's the other thing. I don't buy the whole stigmata thing. Okay. That's mine. Thanks. And the reason being why I don't buy the whole stigmata thing is stop it. People bleed from their palms, right? And then the tops of their feet.
Yep.
And then they also bleed from the head in extreme cases because there are stages to stigmata. I don't know. Whatever.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's stages. So it'll start with the holes on the hands.
Yeah. Okay.
Then it starts with the feet, or it goes the holes in the hands, then the feet, and then the crown of thorns, and then the spear. You know what I mean? Okay. The spear.
Yeah.
But I don't buy the whole stigmata thing. And my reasoning for that is because now I'm going to upset a lot of Christians, but I am not a believer in, God or Jesus Christ. But if Jesus Christ, in fact, was crucified, okay, they are not going to crucify him through his palms. Your palms cannot hold your body weight up. They're going to crucify you.
That's what I always wondered.
Yep. Your palms will rip. You ain't staying up, The feet, the top of the feet, I can understand. It's the wrists, though. They would crucify him through the wrists, not the palm. So that's why I don't buy stigmata. Scientifically, and I understand people are going to come at me and be like, well, he did miracles. Okay, well, if he did miracles, he could have gotten himself down. Just my opinion.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you because I've never believed in any of those stories or like the Adam and Eve stories, like none of it, because it just doesn't add up. And that happened so long ago. Stuff changes so much anyways.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, there is so much that's just, it's fables. It's mythology. You know what I mean? So, the whole stigmata thing, I don't go with. I don't buy it. I believe people want to feel divine and they create their own symptoms. So, we're still waiting for David.
Yeah.
He's going nuts.
But now here's the thing, though, with the whole Annalise case. Talking in different languages, though, that she hadn't heard before. That's the one where it's like, you know what? That does sound like demonic possession.
It does. It does. I believe so. Interestingly enough, the only thing that throws me off is one video I was watching was saying one of the demons' names was Hitler. And I'm pretty sure that's not it. It was Nero, Judas, Lucifer. There were 6. Nero.
Doesn't start with a B.
Yeah. It's not B. It sounds like it's like Abliel or Abliel, but it's really like it's a variation of a different name. I can tell you right now. I'm going to look it up.
Okay.
We're going to look it up.
Okay.
Because I certainly don't believe it was Hitler, even though some of these texts say it was. And it's like, Hitler is not going to get that kind of hierarchy in hell. Sorry.
No. Unless he was possessed the whole time.
He could have been.
That demon was named Hitler.
I'm pretty sure he showed anything that I read about him. He showed signs of being a little fucker from being since he was a kid. That's what it was.
Yeah.
No. It is okay.
Oh.
No, why is it okay? So it's saying Lucifer, that's what it was. Cain, Judas, Iscariot, Belial, Legion, Hitler, and Nero. But I don't. Why Hitler though? Why is that telling me Hitler? It's not
Unless
Hitler.
that's not in reference. Unless that name is not in reference to the Hitler we know. You know what I mean? And there is a demon in the biblical times named Hitler.
Yeah. So Lucifer, Cain, Nero, Judas, Legion, and Belial. That's the 6. Hitler is thrown in there for no apparent reason.
Yeah, that is pretty
ridiculous.
The one I was thinking it might be was Beelzebub, but it was
no, Belial. What are you doing? Belial, I believe, in the 72 demons of the Goetia. I believe he is a prince or duke. Come on. He could be a duke.
Okay.
I think he's a duke. Belial, where are you? Yep.
No, it's there's such a fine line with, severe mental illness and demonic possession, and sometimes it's both, because if you're weakened by things, then it's easier to become possessed. So it's hard to tell with a lot of things.
It is. You know what? You were driving me absolutely bananas. Okay. I'm trying to do a show here and you are just messing everything up. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So Belial was originally one of the angels casted out of heaven.
Okay. Now, aren't all demons?
Most of them, yeah. If you go, now,
I guess so.
Let's go on.
Okay.
If you go through some of them, they won't, in the Lesser Key of Solomon, they're not dubbed as fallen angels. So I don't think all of them are.
Okay. So I was always curious about that. Because the main ones you always hear are the fallen angels. So that's why I was like, well, are they all fallen angels then? Where do
yeah. I just think it's an interesting mix, especially because originally all 6 names were supposed to be one person. There's 6 names,
right?
All for Lucifer, Satanas, Lucifer. Yeah. Like Nero is another name for Lucifer. I actually, interestingly enough, I have a possession story that I think I already got into when I was a kid, and what was spelled out was Nero during that possession. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep.
Ooh, okay.
So, and then we didn't continue. And then my best friend started acting cray-cray. And can you stop it, please? And then my sister, being hyper religious at the time, she broke out her Bible. It was a whole thing. It was a whole shebang. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's a story for another time. But Nero.
Yeah, maybe we should just.
Yeah. This is going to be you know what? I'm going to find him.
Yeah, because
I'm like, where did you?
I'm not sure. That's so awkward. Yeah, maybe we should do a whole podcast on personal accounts then. That'd be cool.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my thing.
Okay.
Right now. How do you... I don't know what to do here.
I know.
David.
Are we going to need to re-record all this?
I hope. There he is.
Oh, yay.
The question is, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, that was fun.
Not recording now, or are we recording?
We are recording.
Okay.
It is recording now. God almighty, what a mess. Okay, I was listening to you guys go through it. The Annalise recordings, and I swear this is where we get in trouble at, and I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm probably going to have to do some really constructive editing now on this. But I'm going to play the Annalise recordings while I'm up and flying here. Now, I just want to say something right now. If there's anyone out there that's listening to this and you are sensitive to this, you might want to walk away for about 5 minutes, okay? Because this stuff is really, really intense. I'm also going to be showing images on our YouTube channel of Annalise before and while she was under possession, and they are not pretty either. So kind of prepare yourself, because this is going to get real intense, and I will let you know where we're at. I'm going to start this, and this is the recording of Annalise Michelle, and here we go. This is her normal voice.
Ja, ich will auch für die anderen leiden, damit die nicht in die Hölle kommen und so. Aber dass die dann so schlimm ist und so grausam und so furchtbar, nee. Das denkt man leiden, das ist so leicht gesagt, aber wenn es dann wirklich schlimm wird, da will man überhaupt nicht mehr, da will mein Kind schon.
Okay, just like anyone else, German, I believe. Now, she's supposedly possessed by 6 demons. The first one we're going to hear is Hitler.
Sind wir schon 3?
The next one is Cain. This one is Nero. This is Fleischmann. And this is Judas.
Die müssen in eigenen Seminaren ausgebildet werden, die dürfen nicht auf die anderen Universitäten. Kapiert?
Klar. Wer soll schon etwas besagen? Weil der Teufel größere Macht.
The last one is Lucifer.
Im Namen deines Sohnes bin Jungfrau, im Namen Jesu, befehle ich dir auszufahren. Im Namen des dreifaltigen Gottes, im Namen des dreifaltigen Geistes, befehle ich dir auszufahren und nicht.
Ooh.
That's
I
some
wanna
pretty heavy
correct-
shit right
I
there.
want to correct something. So when we
Yeah.
were having technical difficulties, okay,
Right.
and I know that's the video that I sent you. That video is in fact wrong. A lot of sources on Google say that that's Hitler. It is not Hitler. It is it's the 6 names for the devil, supposedly. So technically they are all different entities, but they're all names for the devil. It is Belial, Judas, Cain. Hold on, I had it. Un momento. Okay. Where is it? I missed it. Hold on.
Fleischman, was that one of them?
No. It's Lucifer, Cain, Judas, Belial, Legion, and Nero.
Okay.
So it says Hitler in there, but it's 6 names. It's one name is Iscariot or Iscariot, however you say it, but that is actually that's Judas.
Judas. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We are gonna have to wrap this up. We've gone over our time. But I do want to go over these 6 points or factors of being possessed that's recognized by the Catholic Church. So if you have a question about someone being possessed, this is going to give you an idea of what to look for and what they're going to look for. Okay. Number 1, as I said earlier, demons want nothing to do with Christ. They don't want to mention his name. They don't want to hear his name. Conversely, people with neurological brain disease are often devoutly religious. So there's a big difference right there. Irrational speech versus rational speech. In New Testament accounts involving demons, demons spoke in a rational manner. Untreated people with schizophrenia will often speak in nonsense and jump rapidly between topics. Ordinary learning versus supernatural learning. Demons in the New Testament would speak through people to convey knowledge that otherwise could not have been known to the possessed individuals. Those with MBD have no such ability and to know facts which they have not acquired by normal learning. So once again, nefarious, if you go back and look at that movie, as soon as the shrink walks in the door, he starts telling him everything about him and never met the guy before, but he knows everything. He knows his girlfriend, what she's doing, where she's at, everything. Normal versus occult phenomena is another point. There's an aspect of demon activity that is just plain spooky. Poltergeist, levitations, trances, telepathy. These have an impact on others in the room, not just the possessed. With schizophrenia, the effects of this disorder is only on the disordered and not others. So they can transfer this spooky behavior to the other people in the room. The claim to being possessed. Authors who have clinical experience, both with demon possession and mental illness, believe that those who claim to be possessed are very likely not possessed. Demons wish to be secretive and do not voluntarily claim to be present. They have to be brought out by the priest or those seeking giving help. And then the last one is the effects of therapy. If prayer solves the problem, then it was probably not schizophrenia. If medicine helps alleviate the problem, it was probably not a demon. So that's the 6 points they look for right there. So
I do want to touch on one thing as far as that, though, which is another reason why I'm on the fence about Annalise. In demonic possession, no matter if you have 1 or 40, okay, they are not going to be so quick to give you their names. In any experience that I have had, seen, read, they are not quick to give you their names, because when you have their names, you know what you're dealing with. And it's, one thing that they did get right in the Conjuring movies, okay? If you've ever seen the second Conjuring movie where the nun is there, Valak, she's fighting so hard to figure out his name, and she figures it out, and she says, I have dominion over you because I know your name. That's absolutely right. You know what the name is, you know what you're dealing with. So there is that. Also, Valak is not a made-up demon. He is an actual demonic entity that dates back all the way to the Book of Solomon, the Lesser Key of Solomon.
wow.
That's it. That's all I got.
Oh, that's interesting.
All right, so there you go, guys. Do your research, dig into it. Let us know how you feel about this. What do you think about demonic possession? Is it a thing, or is it mental illness? I, for one, have not personally witnessed it, nor do I want to be very honest with you. It's an area that I really would not want to get into and would not want to be trapped in. So other than, it seems like every time we start talking about this subject, shit starts coming unglued on with this show. Stuff just starts happening. Yeah. So maybe we better back off of this for a little while. We're going to let our listeners give us their 2 cents worth, and we will move on from there. Ladies, do we have any last words we want to say or advice you want to give real quick?
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you think you're possessed, find therapy first. Check that out. Mental health is a real thing, and it's not a perfect science. So
right. Exactly. Very, very, very good advice, Audra. I appreciate it. And ladies, all right, we're going to cut this out, and I want to thank you both very much. I appreciate your patience in suffering with me one more time through Morty. If I ever catch that little bastard, I'm going to wring his neck.
I know.
Hopefully, we'll get to the point where we can get all new equipment and maybe get past all these problems. But until then, you're going to be stuck with this game that we're playing, it seems like, every month with this stuff. Yeah. With that, I'm going to tell you guys thank you. We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening one more time. Once again, if you want real paranormal talk, serious paranormal talk, and an adult approach to the paranormal, come see us. You want to deal with all the bullshit that's out there on the internet that they're shoveling down, then you go see them. But we're not going to lie to you, and we're not going to blow smoke up your ass. We're going to give you the real stuff. With that, I want to again thank each and every one of you. Thank my lovely co-host here, Audra and Alexis, and we will see you guys again real soon. And you guys out there that are listening and watching, keep it spooky, guys. Good night.
Good night, guys.
All right, guys, you know the deal. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, feel free to email us at transcendingveils@gmail.com. Also, be sure to follow Transcending Veils on social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't be afraid to swing by D.E. Riley and myself's personal Instagrams at NotReallyWilly and at AudraMoon_. We got some spooky stuff going on there too. So until the next episode, can't wait to hear from you guys.
And for Transcending Veils merch, go to teespring.com/Transcending Veils podcast.